Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
I'll start. All right, we'll start with the prayer. Season of prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those within the tombs he granted life. O heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, you are everywhere present and fill all things, treasure of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell within us. Cleanse us of all stains, save our souls, O gracious Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome, and as we say in my tradition, Christ is risen, and you respond, indeed he is risen. So, Christ is risen.
Indeed he is risen.
Just a little announcement. First of all, I have some cards that you can be so kind as to take a few and just pass them out, your church, family, employment, anywhere. This is a little card advertised for the Illinois Catholic Prayer Breakfast, the third annual one, which is coming up, April 30th. I'm just joined the board, the committee planning this. And we're going to have a great speaker, Bishop Salvador Cordileone from Oakland, newly installed Bishop of Oakland Diocese, who led the effort on Proposition 8 to keep traditional marriage legal in California. And they made the amendment to the Constitution which overturned the bad practice of judges that wanted to make so-called gay marriage legal. And Bishop Sal was a real catalyst in that. So he'll be speaking at this prayer breakfast. And it's April 30th, 2010. And there'll be a mass and rosary and something like that. It goes. You can even attend it and still get to work for a lot of people, because the whole thing ends like about 9:30. Starts about 5:30. It's a breakfast. So yeah. Anyway, I have some cards here I'll pass out for you a little bit later. Today I'm going to be, in light of the constant news events that always get recycled and dusted off and brought out and put it in our face at this time of year, I'm going to be a clergy predator. Yes, in light of the clergy sex predators that is constantly coming up in our faces, I'm going to be a clergy predator today. Only I'm going to prey upon certain things like this brand new, just hot off the press, which hopefully all of you will pick up. Maybe if you have it, you can pull it out and follow along with me. Newsweek, cover story. What would Mary do? How women can save the Catholic Church from its sins. It's a whole thing on the clergy sex abuse thing and where the church went wrong, what the solution is. And to their credit, though, Newsweek has printed right after their article, the following article was by George Weigel to give the other balanced presentation. And ironically, or as I would expect him to do, he, of course, cites, as part of the solution, the theology of the body. So we're going to pick our way through this article because it's very telling, because it brings up a lot of points, and also have some articles in the resources that we're going to go through to give the truth. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to do what I do on my radio program, A Body of Truth, on CatholicRadioInternational.com, is we walk around the issue like John Paul does, 360 degrees, to arrive at the truth. In other words, to give perspective, to acknowledge only that which is truthful and to expose that which is not true. And throughout this, we're going to be kind of weaving throughout will be the theology of the body, because ultimately theology of the body is the answer to this. And had we known it or stuck to it, what we knew of it before it was called theology of the body, we would not have had a so-called clergy sex abuse scandal. We're also going to look at that for what it really, really is, because it's not what is presented at all. I think I've told you before here, to me the most profound statement ever made on the whole clergy sex abuse scandal was made by a comedian, Jay Leno. When during the height of it, back when all this was really breaking, I think in 2002, he said on his show one day, he said, it was a joke, part of his monologue, meant as a joke. He said, "Did you hear the Catholic Church is going to do away with celibacy because of the sex abuse scandal?" Do away with it? Why don't they try it first, see if it works? Now, I don't know if he meant to slam it or whatever, it's just a joke, okay? But when I heard that, I thought to myself, there, he nailed it. That was the most profound thing said about this whole situation. The world is telling us that the cause of it was because of what we believe and practice as Catholics, when the truth was actually in the joke. The truth is, we had this situation, this phenomenon, precisely because we weren't, as George Weigel says in his article, Catholic enough. See, that's the key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through this because I'm also hoping it will help to empower us as Catholics to answer some of these things, some of these misrepresentations and accusations and so on, to give real compassion, real honesty, real perspective to this issue. You see, this stuff is a lot of the stuff you're going to hear is very, very easy to debunk, and yet it gets put up as, the luminaries of this world and the prominent magazines and so on like that. But we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you, and hopefully it will help you to answer some of these things, maybe even clear up confusion. But most importantly, it's going to give you, hopefully, the truth about this whole issue. And to underscore, as always, which is the point of all these series here, our classes, to underscore the fact that the theology of body is the answer to all of life's questions. Simply because it is the correct way to look at all of life, period. It's looking at life through God's eyes. And you can't go wrong doing that. No matter what you look at, you're going to look at it correctly, right? If you're seeing as God sees, you're going to see the truth of everything, no matter what it is. You name it, you can see the truth of it. You can see it clearly if you see it through God's eyes. Now, God's eyes, God's lenses, happen to be, on this earth, the Catholic Church. And the way we look at things, we sort of, like my CSI glasses, we look at things through a sacramental worldview, sacramental liturgical, I call it sacramental/liturgical worldview, which is the same as seeing things authentically human or authentically Catholic. Remember, I call it going back to school. Sacramental, Catholic, human, liturgical. And that's really what the theology body is delivering. It's delivering how to see things correctly. And seeing things correctly can only mean seeing things as God sees them. And the glasses for that are is the Catholic ethos. Okay? So the key then is not to change the Catholic Church, to take out the parts of it that are no, rather is to go the opposite way, to be even more Catholic, to be authentically Catholic. And what does that mean? Does that mean following the rules? No, there are no rules. It means a way of seeing and a way of living according to that vision. That's Catholicism. Catholicism is not a religion. Catholicism is the truth about life, period. First Catholic was God. That's right. Did you hear that? The first Catholic was God. Tell your Protestant friends that. Please tell your Protestant friends I said that, and you tell them too. The first Catholic was God. They may have Billy Graham and Pat Robinson. We've got God. You see, the first Catholic was God because it says right in the Bible that every time God made something, he said it was good. And that's what Catholic is. Catholic is a Catholic does. And what do? We look at everything and we say, it is good. And we offer it back to God on that altar in praise and thanksgiving. Okay, that's Catholic. It's a way of seeing, a way of responding to what we see. This is why Eucharist is the source and summit of our existence. And we're doing nothing more than what God did, and it says so in the Bible. He saw it, said it was good. That's Catholic. You need to know nothing else. Okay, class over, let's go for lunch, right? And if that is what Catholic is. Seeing as God sees and responding to it as a result. Now we get into trouble when we don't see as God sees, because then we don't respond to things correctly, and then we have bad things happen. Simple as that. So let's look at how the world approaches things, the non-sacramental world. The article, okay? Beautiful pictures, by the way. I love the paintings, the art. I have to compliment on that. And inside it says, a woman's place is in the church. Okay. Here's the first thing. The cause of the Catholic clergy sex abuse scandal is, now right then and there, look at the presumption. First of all, have you ever wondered, why is everybody so interested in our business? Will there be another article next week that'll say, the problem with the Muslims are, and what they should do is, the problem with the Jews is what they should do. Do you think you'd ever see that? No, but for us, you see it on the front cover and in the centerfold. Golly, they must be so interested in what we're about. And they're not even part of us, for the most part. But they're going to be very expert on what we should do. Okay, so that's the first thing. And don't be afraid to tell your friends this, too. So it says here, the cause of the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal is no mystery. Oh, really? So they know. Definitively. They've got it up. And here's their answer, their definitive answer, because they're so expert on the Catholic faith. Insular groups of men often do bad things. So, why not break up the all-male club? Okay, where do you begin with this? I mean, presumption after presumption after presumption. An all-male club. Now, you see, this is very important because this is what happens as Catholics. These are called sound bites, right? It's okay? Like little cliche sound bites that have a lot of impact to them, okay? Now, people today are not allowed or taught to edit things that come into their brains. We just sort of have a response to it, especially if it's like it's a catchy soundbite, and we figure, well, that's it. We don't think it through, we don't challenge it. So that's why they speak in terms of everything that they say is a foregone conclusion, irrefutable, and let's move on and show why we're right. Well, what we have to do as Catholics is you have to do, it's all in the words. Like we can spend a whole week just on the subtitle of this article. And that's what we need to do as Catholics, to get at the truth, to keep the world honest, to present who we are, and invite people into our worldview, which is the worldview. So there's all kinds of presumptions here that are done in terms of sound bites. An all-male club. Most people would say, yeah, that's right. It's mostly guys, it's all guys who are priests. I guess it's all-male club. Oh, boy. No, wrong. It's not an all-male club at all. It's not even a club. Okay, let's go on into the article itself. Here they are, the members of history's oldest and most elite all-male club. Is the church all-male? Is it a club? Is it elite? And this is what you say. If someone says that, what I do is this, and it's what you should do. What do you mean by elite? Here's how I understand elite. Tell me about elite. Well, blah, 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 blah. What's a club? Is it all male? Have you been in church? You know who the Blessed Virgin Mary is? You know the legions of women, saints in the church? What do you mean by all-male club? I don't understand.
They're in the hierarchy.
They've been the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that an all-male club?
All male, not club.
Okay. And why is it all male?
Well, that's the whole thing.
Exactly. Why is it all male? Since these people know so much about the church, tell us why it's all male. Why would it be all male? What does that mean? Remember the analogy of the two railroad tracks I made about thinking, the world's thinking? Two railroad tracks parallel, or two rails of a track, a railroad track. On the one rail here, the top rail, let's say, that's the way the world thinks. This is how the world looks at things. They look at things in terms of power, function, usefulness. And they use this standard of egalitarianism. In other words, everything has to be equal, everything has to be the same. Men and women have to be in the exact same spot at all times, doing the exact same things, looking exactly the same way, talking exactly the same way, etc., etc., etc. Otherwise, you have, in the world's view, an inequality. All right? And they're basically defining out what's everybody doing, who's got the power. If all men are there, that means women have no power. First of all, they're seeing that as power, which it's not. It's service, a very humbling service, I may add, as a priest. Secondly, there's a reason behind it, which has nothing to do with power or usefulness. So the church, on the other hand, on the bottom rail, functions from the standards of its S words: sign, sacrament, and symbol. Did this go out, or is it? I don't see anything on the screen. Is it still okay? Sign, sacrament, and symbol. Okay, it has nothing to do with power. All right. In other words, sign. What does something mean? Secondly, or thirdly, when you look at the clergy, you're looking at one piece of the whole church, correct? Now, if you think in terms of power, you're going to focus non-sacramentally and very compartmentalized, and look and focus on that one aspect of the church and make a judgment about the whole church based on that. In other words, completely out of context with the rest of the church, with the rest of the whole context of the church, its charism, its ecclesiology, its history, its liturgy, everything. You're ignoring 99.99% of the entire church. Everything about the church. When you focus on, as worldly thinking does, one piece of something and then sort of magnify it, then make general statement and then shoot out sound bites to it that put you people as Catholics on the defensive. You tell them, yeah, this is all male clergy, but what about it? Why is that? Just ask them why. Well, they'll give you.
And why is that bad?
Yeah, why is that bad?
Why,
Precisely.
Why should you have an all something something?
Exactly. Yes.
Well, the devil's advocate side is that a lot of people think the Catholic Church is about rules.
Right.
It's all about rules. It's
Right.
all rules. And I think there's a moral authority that's probably not really articulated that people ascend to because they aren't interested in any other religions. I mean,
Right.
but I think it's the moral authority. I think that's where people see that as a club, that they make rules, and
Right.
the group has to obey the rules. And
Right.
it's not questioned.
And you hit it on the head. It's perfectly.
the
That's
other side of the argument.
that's how they see it,
Yeah.
and they think.
What we do in society, there's rules, and in our, the way our civil life lives, it's all about rules. And they can't compare, or they don't want to, equate. I think we use the word authority and power, and they're two different words. And the authority that we need as a higher, parents have authority over children, it's all about rules. Well, sure, and that's an authority, and that authority is truth, and that truth brings us freedom. And I think that's what we have to see with freedom. The source of freedom is not in power, but in authority.
Right. See, again, it's what you're saying is exactly right. But again, we're talking about two parallel worldviews which shall never meet. The only hope is the ones here have to come into here to understand it, to see what we mean by what we do. Yes, you see the problem here is, and that's the whole purpose of my life, to try to get people to think sacramentally, mystically. You see, the problem is we don't. We think very pragmatically, very functionally, very superficially. Things that are like, again, power, usefulness, it's what's very surfacey. The problem is we think in terms of, like the question, why is it all men? Well, the answer to that, you have to understand the theology of the body. There's a revelatory value of gender. There's a reason why it's male here, why it's female here. That's part they don't tell you. That's part they don't go into. Why is it male here, in this specific area, and so exclusively that way? Now the world gets all inflamed. How could it be exclusive? You can't. No, it's exclusively that way for a reason. Now what you do is you ask these people to tell you the reason. Do you know why the church? Well, they would say, oh yeah, because you're a bunch of chauvinists, it's this men's club. I said, no, that's not the reason. That's what you're ascribing to the church, but that's not the why behind it. There is a reason behind everything in the church, and everything has to do with the theology of everything. What something means. What does manhood mean? What does womanhood mean in the context of the whole plan of revelation, of the whole created order? And that's what's being imaged and participated in everything that the church does. There's a huge why behind it, which is what we're trying to explain in these classes, what this is all about here, the theology of the body. Pope John Paul II knew that people don't know this, they don't think this way, so he tried to explain to them, look, it's not just there's a man there and what he's doing and how come a woman can't be up there. There's a theology to his maleness. There's a theology to her femaleness, which was purposeful by God, so that all of creation can participate in God. You see, this is like light years, eons away from where they're at. And yet these are supposedly the big guys, right? This is Newsweek. Yeah, it's just hot off, yep. All right, let me go into, did you understand now? See, it's a worldview. In fact, if you're going to get a little smart with them, you can say, okay, you know why it's an all-male priesthood? Because the church is all about women. Whoa, and you see the brain go nuclear mode, like, you know, like when your jumper cables, when you reverse your jumper cables on a battery. Yeah, because what you're going to do to them, which I love doing, because I'm so non-PC and BC, as I like to short-circuit their brains, I like to throw right back at them their sacred cows. Women, we're for women, and you terrible chauvinists. I say, yeah, the reason why we have all about clergy is precisely because it's all about women for us in the Catholic Church. And that's what you and that's the truth.
That's a buzzword they can understand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Servant.
big. That's big.
Servant leadership,
Servant
yes.
leadership.
If you use those business power models.
Yes,
there you go.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You catch it, so it's called catch the word,
Try being a priest for a
that
day.
kind of, yeah, exactly, yes. All right. Let's see. Trying to manage, it says the All Male Club trying to manage what began as a domestic crisis. No. Oh, here's a good one. Here's the one where they're trying to shoot back at conservatives who knock Obama. No one of the men now charged with damage control face such credibility gap, a sense that they who read apologies from teleprompters, see what they're doing there, appear insufficiently again. Right away, this tells you right there they betrayed that this is basically so-called, although I don't like to speak in those terms, but since it's secular world you can, a liberal agenda. It's a liberal agenda. Basically the bottom line is, as always, is they should ordain women to the priesthood. That's always what it comes down to, and that's so you can pick it up right there, because that was a little dig at what they consider to be conservatives who knock Obama for talking on the teleprompter, you know. So, so the priests talk by teleprompters. Okay, anyway. Here, now, after a New York Times story reported that Pope Benedict XVI, then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, failed to defrock a priest who abused 200 deaf children in Wisconsin. See, there we go again. Number one. Do you know it's not a matter of defrocking? Priests are not really defrocked. That's another term that's thrown around. They're not defrocked. And you are a priest forever. You just have your capacities to function limited as a result of it. But you're not defrocked. You can be returned to the lay state, but ontologically you remain a priest. Defrocking is I don't know, it's, again, some kind of buzzword. It's meaningless. But see, they take this and everybody just goes along, you know. Okay, defrocker who abused 200 deaf children. Okay, Ratzinger refused to. Okay, who was Ratzinger disobeying? Newsweek? He was supposed to defrock this man and he didn't. You see how the language is? Now people reading this go, yeah, why he didn't? Gosh, what kind of a church is that? They don't stop to think, wait a minute, was he supposed to defrock him? It says who? The Pope? He is the Pope. Yeah, and why didn't he? Again, always bring it to the why. Yes.
There's a show called The View, and
Yes.
the Catholic spokesperson is Joy Behar, because she's raised Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And she uses those, she throws out the question, like, why did the Pope defrock him? And that's picked up,
Right.
and that goes on all of the, no one
Yes.
reads Newsweek. I mean, maybe smart people do, but like the average person on the street does not read Newsweek. They watch The View, and then they watch.
But it's the same stuff.
Yeah, that's why,
But
exactly.
It's a soundbite about why didn't the Pope
Right.
defrock him? She said that last
Yeah.
week.
Now, here's a good one. Oh, there's so much good stuff here. We got all day, but then I want to get to all this. But okay. The problem is not, as so many progressives claim, a factor of their celibacy, nor is it their costumes. Do you think they'd ever call a woman's burqa a costume? See, keep them honest and don't be afraid. The mitres and capes, though these vanities do serve as, see, read again, every word is a judgment, a definitive judgment. And these words just blow by everybody. And they'll go, oh yeah, oh, cape costumes, oh yeah, gee, vanity, yeah. You got to challenge every single word. Every single word is rooted in the most arrogant, gross presumption. Within their enclave, oh, here we go. Though these vanities do serve as reminders of the great distance between men with power and the people without. See, there they go again. No, those costumes mean Christ present and service to the people. The problem, bluntly put, is that the bishops, there he goes. Bluntly put, they know the problem, okay? The problem, bluntly put, is that the bishops and cardinals who manage the institutional church live behind guarded walls in pre-enlightenment world. Pre-enlightenment world. Like the lighten.
Do these people know any priests or bishops? Like personally?
No.
Do they know?
Within their yeah, they obviously don't know. Well, by doing what I'm doing, I'm trying to give you like a little class on how to do it. First of all, you have to be like I am, a little bit kind of a wholly arrogant. Like, you know, you want to, in a sense, you got to have a confident chip on your shoulder. You're going to come at them. You're going to say, wait a minute, what did you just say? Tell me about that. You know, that's not right. You're very insensitive, you know. That's what you do. First of all, Catholics, stop being so freaking afraid. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. You got to have a bit of a chip. You got to come at them and set them in their place because they won't respect us otherwise. It's like a classroom. You get these kids running around with, oh, please, kids, can you behave? I'm a nice teacher. Please behave so I can teach. You got to set them in their place, then teach them. And we were dealing with, don't you hear, you know what this is? Don't you hear what this is, especially with our parents? This is adolescent arrogance. How do you deal with adolescent arrogance? How do they want to be dealt with? You know what this person really wants to be dealt with? Like I'm talking right now. They want to be set in their place and told straight. That's really what the world really wants. They do. Truly they do.
Because us Catholics don't even know. Even Catholics who know that this is all wrong, we don't know how to refute it.
Okay, first it's attitude. You got to have an attitude. You do. Number two, it's real easy. If you don't think you have the vocabulary, what you do is, what I'm demonstrating here, think of it as a horse race. You know, the horse race are at the gate. On your mark, you start, go, bing, they go. Okay, what they do is like this thing is, this is like their horse. It shoots out way ahead of us Catholics with all their rhetoric and their buzzwords and all that feeling guilty, all this emotionally charged words and presumptions. And we Catholics are like, boom, 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 boom. And then they come to the end of the race, boom, and they're sitting there waiting for us at the finish line. Well, okay, Catholics, how do you answer now? We won, huh? And we're like, boom, yeah, I guess we won. Okay, here's what you do. There is no race. You stop it right at the gate. That's the key. That's why we have the upper hand. All you have to do is keep asking questions. You don't even have to, if you don't feel like you have the right at the moment or wherewithal to answer them back, keep answering questions so that the race never goes on. In other words, you're getting right at the starting gate. When you say things like I just did earlier, what do you mean by elite? What does elite mean to you? What is a club to you? You know, just keep asking why. What do you mean by that? Why? What do you mean by that? And every once in a while you can throw something in. Like Sister said, do you really know a priest? Ever met, ever walked in? You know, you hear about the priests that are being killed in like China and Sudan and Iraq? You know, he just celebrated liturgy. He came out of his church. He was gunned down. His body was left there in the street so that if any other Christian came along to attend to his dead body, they would be gunned down too because they wanted that body to lay there, be humiliated in front of the world. This goes on by the hundreds all the time as you and I are sitting here speaking arrogantly. Those are the priests that I know. Can you tell me about the priests that you know? Well, see what I mean? It's so easy. This is so easy to blow apart. Just two things you got to know. Come at them, be confident, and keep asking them, like getting them to be honest. It's like you're like in the westerns, the guys would shoot at someone's toes, dance, you know, bad guys do that. You know, you want to keep like stepping on their toes, like keeping them on, like poking with the honesty stick. Come on, be honest. No, you're not honest. That's not honest. No, come on. Why? What do you mean by that? And you know what? They'll never get, see, their strength is all superficial. It's all in blowing past with their rhetoric, see? But what you got to do is You have to challenge the rhetoric. You have to challenge every single. You see how many words? How many words here are ill-founded and based on presumption? They have no substance to them. They sound good. You know, it's like a lot of these Hollywood movies, Sisters in the Hollywood movie. You know, Hollywood, you know, they're very good at making emotional impacts. Like, look at The Sopranos, Bonnie and Clyde, The Godfather. What did Hollywood do through those things? They made us empathize with the bad guys. They completely control our emotions. They're genius at it. Well, do the same thing with this, see? But it's not about emotion. It's about absolute pinpoint honesty. Hold them to honesty. What do you mean by this word here? Now, we're going to see some huge honesty things. Just like you ask him that a question like I did, very, very quietly, very, you know, you can do it very gently, whatever. Would you ever call a Muslim burqa a costume? I mean, like, would you put it in print? Well, I'll jump to here, just to show you this too. Just show you the facts. I have articles upon articles here from psychiatry, spirituality, you name it. Here we go. According to studies, a study by Jenkins, this study here is by historian sociologist Philip Jenkins of Pennsylvania State University. Here's what his studies show, which is a fact anyway. According to studies by Jenkins, if one compares the Catholic Church, United States, to the major Protestant denominations, one discovers that the presence of pedophiles, depending on the denomination, is from 2 to 10 times higher for major Protestant denominations compared to Catholic priests. Here's the haymaker. The question is important because it demonstrates that the problem is not celibacy, because most of the Protestant pastors are married. There goes this whole... Because what is the world saying? It's that celibacy. Get rid of that celibacy and get ordained women priests. That'll do it. You've got women priests in the Anglican churches, in Protestant churches. You've got mostly married Protestant ministers. It's unthinkable they would not be married. Yet their incidence of sexual abuse is 10 times higher. So you ask them, are you going to make an article about that? And you start out by saying, as I did, my oh my, you know, with this statistic, with those facts, and that most sexual abuse cases happen within families, by the way, especially, and my whole point today is going to be this, and this is what you have to, the main point we have to get to the world. Clergy sex abuse, all sex abuse, has come as the fruits of the world's idea of sexuality, which has broken up homes. You know where most sex abuse happens? In all these broken up multiple homes. You know, mom's new boyfriend, you know, doesn't give a flying fart about the daughter that was born from her, or the father's gone now, but he's this child molester that she tied up with and met at a bar. That's where it's happening. From the broken homes and dysfunctional relationships that have been the fruit of what the world pushed, especially since the 1960s, of the sexual revolution. See, what's happened is this. That stuff bled into families, Catholic families. Were these pedophile priests, so-called, which they're not, it's another thing, but okay, these sex offending priests were products of our culture, right? They're products of our culture, which has been so broken, even in good Catholic families. By what? By the bleeding in, the adopting, the taking in of what was not Catholic, not sacramental. And now that they did that, the same people who forced that on us are beating us over the head with it. Do you understand? Why do you have clergy sex abuser in your church? Well, isn't that what the sexual revolution basically promoted or wanted?
We're supposed to be better.
You act, yeah, we're supposed to be.
Really.
You're supposed to be, right, exactly, meaning we're supposed to be Catholic. But the thing is, why would the world, who has no use for us, care about whether we're better or not? Why would they care so much that they make us always this? What does that tell you? This is what you say to someone too. What I would say to them is like, wow, you just can't get us out of your head, can't you? We must be special. Yeah, we must be something. Huh? You're mad as heck that we're not who we said we are, huh? But why would you care? Because you have no use for us anyway. See what I mean? It's so easy.
Sometimes I think they just want to be like us and they're just jealous of what we have as Catholics, true Catholics. And they're missing out on the true stuff.
Yes, they are. And see, the thing is, it's like this. When someone has something you don't have, and deep down inside you want it, even if you may not intellectually know that, what do we do out of our human dark side? Yes, we attack and bring them down. Because if we can belittle them and reduce that thing, then we don't feel so bad that we don't have it. Get it? Because they're no better than us. I don't have to feel so bad. So it's easier to try to bring them down. But it's a backhanded affirmation that we really admire what they have. And here's the key to adolescence, by the way, which is what this is, and basically our culture is at adolescent level. Adolescence, deep down inside, wants the very thing that it strikes against. The reason it strikes against it is because it wants it to stand firm. See, the reason why they're after us, they can't answer it. You would get them real nervous. Is that why are you such a fascination to you when you have nothing to do with it? I mean, you think the church is out of date anyway, so why bother with us? I mean, don't you just pass us by? Oh, they're out of date, irrelevant. Right? We're irrelevant, right? Well, why are you so obsessed with us then if we're so irrelevant? Because deep down inside, you know we're not. You know we're it. And we let you down. Or so you think. So you're made to believe, because you obviously aren't thinking on your own. Ooh, make sure you say that to them too. I'm interested in your original thoughts, not when someone's telling you to think. Don't be PC about this. Is a war. And they need this from you. Believe me, you will convert their souls. If you do not come at them this way, you're not going to convert them.
I think we need to do the thing of the rights that we have in this country too, not to be libeled, not to be slandered.
Exactly.
And I read this really great article one time, a long time ago. It was called "The High Art of Taking Offense."
Yes.
And you know how everybody's like the insensitive thing,
Yes.
So that I've started to stop people and go, you know what? The whole thing about knowing priests, and I said, okay, first of all, you're talking about my friends now. Like, I know these people, and they're not. And then you start, making it more personal. And
Yes, exactly.
You can't just go, in this country, you can't just, we have freedom of speech, but there are limits. And you're responsible for what you say in this country, too. More and more, like, even bloggers are getting, and professors and
I just read yesterday, the pastor at St. Peter's has written on the 11th of April, the bulletin on priest scandal. And he was serving on a board, and he said it was scandal to him because he had no friends. He knew nobody that had. At the end of it, he speaks of, now that the church is dealing with this, we're going to move into family and society, and 75% sexual abuse occurs in family.
There you go.
And you just said that, and it's
Right.
on the bulletin, it's in the bulletin.
Very good.
You can pick it up at St. Peter's, it's right there, and you can read it, what he's writing. And it's, it's out there, we're true. We're speaking the truth. Share it.
Yes, and do so confidently. With confidence and strength. Remember,
And charity, I guess.
charity, yes, charity. But sometimes charity, the most charitable thing is to be strong. See, remember, you're speaking to adolescents, okay? Always remember that. Even the so-called intellectuals, They may be intelligent or learned in one area, typical compartmentalization. The rest of them is completely undeveloped. They are adolescent. The world, remember, you're always speaking, no matter who you're speaking to, they are an adolescent, all right? And which means they want authority. They want substance and strength. Deep down inside, they want to be put in their place. Because you know what? They're looking for that thing which is unwavering, which will give them that stability in this chaotic world, that rudder, that base, and that's us. And everyone will the reason why most people in this world, especially your intellectual atheists, your like Muslims, the reason they don't follow us, they have no use for us, is because they think we don't have substance. That's the real reason. We presume, or we had a reputation of, but they're not seeing it. You understand? They're not seeing it. And that's why they hate us. They have to see that substance. Yeah, sure, it's all about compassion. Like I just said, it's an all-male protege because for us, women are number one. That's pretty compassionate, wouldn't you say? Again, I think I bested Oprah on that one. Yes.
How do we answer why the bishops let this kind of thing go on so long?
Okay, you always answer. I guess it's something out of the playbook of Irishmen. Maybe people Irish here, they always answer a question with a question, right? Someone asked an Irishman that one time, how come Irishmen always answer a question with a question? He said, do they now? Asking with a question. You say, did the bishops do that? Is that what they did? And then go into that first. See, never answer their question. See, because the question you just asked, the questions that are asked, the things that are presented, you see here, are done as though it's a foregone conclusion. There's no, it's a sealed, shut, all worked out, everything. And now the world, they stand on their hips. Okay, now you are to answer to us. Now what you want to do is, again, go back into the question. So you're saying what, they did nothing, they cover up whatever? Okay, you ask them, say, did they? In every case, did they? And why did they? That's a very good question. Could you tell me why? Always tell them first. Ask them, why did they? Why do you think they did? And they'll tell you, well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's why you think you did. I respect your opinion. Not really, but I respect your opinion. Let me tell you why they did. Now, it's going to take some time. Would you like to go for lunch? Like everything else, it takes a lot of perspective. One of the biggest reasons they did what they did was because your people, Mr. and Miss Secular Thinking, they listen to your people, to your experts. Because remember, you keep pounding on us to listen to you. Get with the world, church. Get with the world. It's psychiatry. It's psychology. It's modernism. Get with it, you archaic, crusty old celibates, irrelevant. You kept pounding and bleeding in and pounding and bleeding in. So we began to say, okay, maybe we should. And Vatican II came along and said, okay, we are going to listen. But the problem we forgot, though, we're also going to tell you. We're going to listen so we can tell you better. That's what Vatican II is about. We're going to listen so we can tell you better. So we began to listen. And I shall read from another article. While it may hardly be politically correct to say so, there is a fact that is much more important. Over 80% of pedophiles are homosexuals. 80%. That is, males who abuse other males. And again, citing Jenkins, over 90% of Catholic priests convicted for sexually abusing minors have been homosexual. If a problem has sprung up in the Catholic Church, it is not due to celibacy, but to a certain tolerance of homosexuality in seminaries, particularly in the 1970s, when most of the priests later convicted for the abuses were ordained. Do you get the point? In case you don't, read this brain-busting, irrefutable, full-of-facts book called After Asceticism, Sex, Prayer, and Deviant Priests by the Linacre Institute. fact, this is a group of doctors, and the face of them ended up being a doctor in this area named Paul Guyon. This is out of Author House, and hopefully maybe they'll carry it here. But and what this book goes on to prove, dense facts and statistics, science and everything, is exactly that. Let me read from it. By the way, I use the word homosexual. I don't use that word, neither does the church. It was used, I only used it because it was in the article, okay? I usually try to say people who believe they have attracted the same gender. Okay, that's how, I'm sorry. The way I use, the term I use in conjunction with the church, the sensitive church, persons who believe they have an attraction to the same gender, okay? We don't use the word homosexual. I just want to make that note. I only did it because it's in the article, okay? Now, we address the uniquely homosexual character of the crisis for 3 reasons. The lopsided proportion of abuse cases that were arguably homosexual in form, the timing of the crisis that coincided with the liberalization of sexual attitudes about homosexuality, and the observation of commentators on the threat of retaliation over the issue of homosexuality. Rather than that term pedophilia, we use the term pederasty. It describes a character trait of homosexual desire that targets younger males of any age, usually up to early adulthood, or for frank sexual pleasures and unnatural affections. We use the term pederasty because it is a subset of homosexual behavior. It describes the sexual conduct of adult males with pre-adolescent, adolescent, or in some cases, young adult males. So the terms pedophilia and ephebophilia are useful for the purpose of abstract categorization of behavior, but they fail in many instances to capture the character trait of the abuser priest by artificially constraining the description to a specific victim age. The term pederasty is an accurate description of the behavior in over 80% of the clerical abuse cases. Yet what do you hear this clergy sex abuse case called all the time? Only pedophilia. Right there and there, you challenge it. Someone says, yeah, the pedophile priest. You go, wait, excuse me. Do you know what pedophilia means specifically? It means pre-adolescent. Do you know that 80 to 90% of the cases were all post-adolescent, which means they were what we might call homosexual in nature? So you, the world, which is ramming homosexuality down our throats and has been relentlessly for decades, on the point of now they want to legalize marriage, you who have done this, you who pressed the church to say, who forced and influenced bishops to say against the will of Pope John the 23rd that, well, if a candidate for the priesthood has attraction to the same sex, as long as he's not acting it out, he's a suitable candidate for priesthood. It was your influence that made our bishops start to think that and allow, as this article says, tolerance of homosexuality in the seminaries. And now we're paying for it. And you're holding us in contempt because we followed your ways, your will? Do you get it? Do you understand what I just said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question about pediatricians. No one is the American Medical Association is upset with pediatricians, and they're younger patients that
Yes.
with that, they're babies.
Exactly.
And no one in the community is outraged about pediatricians. What about pediatricians? Pediatricians, that's published. But people, they only have the priests are accountable, but not
Right.
teachers, not teachers, not pediatricians. Why is that acceptable? What's that something?
And that's what you, okay, that's exactly right. So you do know how to do it.
But I don't get it. They're babies. A 12-year-old, 13-year-old
Right.
altar boy can run, but a baby can't run anywhere.
Right.
And the mother just gives the baby to the pediatrician.
Yes.
I mean,
The mother's there in the
all
office.
this time.
Even if they do with the doctor, they don't allow the parents to go, well, I don't know if wrong, but the parent cannot go inside, the orthodontist.
Braces and all
Yeah.
that.
They could have to make it.
Well, usually there's only adults in that.
So that's an assumption. I mean, these are facts. If these people are persecuted, prosecuted as sexual. So why is the priest has a higher, I don't know, it's just imbalance to not understand.
Well, I
Why is it
understand
defense?
that the
Adjusted
American
defense of the pediatrician.
The
We'll get, yeah, we're going to get to the psychiatric institute, yeah, the psychiatric world here. Here's, for now, to Newsweek's credit, they printed this article by George Weigel right after, so they had a balance, at least in reporting. What went wrong? Don't blame celibacy to fight the plague of sexual abuse. The church needs to become more Catholic, not less. There's the Jay Leno joke, okay? In another word, okay? In the United States, some 40 to 60% of such abuse takes place within families, often in the hands of, like I was saying before, live-in boyfriends or the second or third or fourth husband of a child's mother. Those cases have nothing to do with celibacy. The case of a married Wilmington, Delaware pediatrician charged with 471 counts of sexual abuse in February has nothing to do with celibacy. Neither did the 290,000 cases of sexual abuse in American public schools between 1991 and 2000, estimated by Carol Shakeshaft of Virginia Commonwealth University. And given the significant level of abuse problems in Christian denominations with married clergy, it's hard to accept the notion that marriage is somehow a barrier against sexually abusive clergy. Indeed, the idea of reducing marriage to an abuse prevention program ought to be repulsive. That's another thing. Their solution puts women down. What are you saying? That give them a woman like a machine, an object just to satisfy his sexual desires so he doesn't go after kids? Think about it. The feminists are demeaning women. Yes.
290,000.
Yes, in public schools in 9 years.
And there's a married or student, but most people make, there's a couple of teachers that marry
Well, a few,
the 15.
But there's something like with the unions, they can't really go after these people, and they can't publicize it, and they get away with it because of the unions. There's something about, I remember hearing,
yeah,
it's very difficult to prosecute public school teachers.
Here, it's a critique that was applicable. The same criticism can be made of teacher unions leaders and state legislators today who ignore or try to bury reports of sexual abuse in America's public schools. So there you go. So yes, aspects.
That doesn't look good for the politicians either, or the school boards. There's people have vested interest in not getting the word out.
They have a vested interest in not getting the word out, and of sort of covering their their image. That's okay. But when the church did it, in any way, although it shouldn't have, but still, I mean, certainly the church doesn't want to have its image smeared, so it's not going to want to just okay, it didn't deal with it correctly in many ways, but you see the double standard? It's okay for them to keep their good face and shove this stuff under but they excoriate the church for doing it. Again, double standard. If we're going to be equal, shouldn't we say the same thing to everyone? How dare those public schools cover this up? So yes, aspects of clerical culture in the U.S. and elsewhere contributed to the problem, but the same deplorable circle the wagons instinct has wrapped the response to this plague in other sectors of society. The difference is that the Catholic Church in America has taken more rigorous action since 2002 to protect the young people in its care than any other similarly situated institution, to the point where the church is likely America's safest environment for young people. There's the truth. As for doctrine, what ought to be obvious about sexual abuse in the Catholic Church is that grave sins and crimes were acts of infidelity, denials of the truth the Church teaches. A priest who takes seriously the vows of his ordination is not a sexual abuser or predator. And if a bishop takes seriously his ordination oath to shepherd the Lord's flock, he will always put the safety of the master's little ones ahead of concerns about public scandal. Catholic light is not the answer to what has essentially been a crisis of fidelity. There were only 6 credible reports of sexual abuse of the young in the U.S. church last year. And while that is 6 too many, in a church that ought to hold itself to the highest standards, it is nonetheless remarkable in a community of 68 million people. That's another thing you get them on the statistics, People love it. They don't believe in God. They go for facts and numbers, statistics. Americans love statistics. Throw the statistics at them. They're on our side.
Going back to the thing about homosexuals, saying that most of it was them, but I think we also have to be careful in, because again, these were older men
Mhm.
with younger men, so it almost sounds like, I think we just have to be careful to say that these were, not only were these like homosexual men or guys with same-sex attraction, but they had the added problem of going after younger guys.
Mhm.
So it's not that every person with same-sex attraction goes after younger
Right.
people. And that's what, I think we have to be so clear when we say that, because, what's his name, from the Catholic League, Bill Donahue, whatever his
Mhm.
name is, he's been stressing this point too.
Yeah.
Without making the distinction of saying, it's not that all gay men will do this.
No.
It's that these guys had two problems.
Right.
You know.
And in fact, in the
And
article,
like sought refuge in the church, and the church said, fine, come, we'll ordain you. That's the problem.
Right.
You know?
and again, why did the church, or levels of the church, because remember the Pope said no, why were the levels of the church, why did they slip in that? That's why theology of the body came into the picture. They forgot that priesthood is male for all that maleness means, which means you want as fully a male as possible in all that that means. Do you understand? Which it would mean that your attraction is to the complementary gender. Now, what Sister's saying is touches on another article I have from the Psychiatric Times, which talks about, it gets deep into the profile of the pedophilia and same-sex, exactly what you're saying, that a lot of what has to be looked at, they're talking about looking at these men comprehensively, and women, by the way, that because there's other problems there other than just, it's not just a sexual thing, it has to do with self-esteem, has to be have been abused, there's a lot of factors. So yes, just because you may have same-sex attraction doesn't mean you're going to go after younger men or children, or girls rather, boys or girls. But the fact is that the majority of cases of abuse were from people with same-sex attraction, but with other things as well. Cases that I knew of personally, that I was actually involved in ways to deal with them, deeply involved. The cases all had other problems as well to the person. It wasn't just they were attracted to and went after. It wasn't just a sexual thing. It had to do with self-esteem. There was drinking. There was self-image. There was history. There was it's multi-leveled. See. Again, wounded people. Wounded people on multi-levels. And why are they wounded? How did they get wounded like this and then become a wounder? Because of the secular approach to things that bled its way into the church. That's why.
You know, the New York Times has just been doing a horrible job on all this, but I only read the Sunday New York Times, and anyway, they started to do some better reporting, and they were trying to get inside the mind of the church and explain all of this from a church standpoint. And they said, and they kind of got it right, because this article, of course, was very buried in the
Yes.
but it said the church looks at things in terms of sin and
Yes.
salvation and forgiveness and these
Exactly.
types of things and healing and whatever. But the world, again, with this law thing, it's like,
Mhm.
but ultimately, if you have
62.
no immutable principles, anything goes.
Right.
Really, in the end, anything goes. And we're seeing that more and more. Like, you can't tell anybody they can't do anything. Anything. And there's no leg to stand on against pedophilia. Why can't I? Man-boy love association.
right.
Why can't I?
Right.
So, in one sense, it's like, because we kind of stick more to the principles, or we should, it's actually, they're going to end up denying their own,
Right.
what they're attacking us for.
Yes, and see,
And if you don't call it a sin, then what is it? It's
Exactly.
your choice. It's your preference. If it isn't, and
Right.
that's why I love how Pope Benedict said to the Irish church, he was like, you're also going to have to answer Almighty God. I mean, not
right.
only, according to your degree of culpability, because again, if people are wounded, we're all wounded, whatever. But It's not just about the church going to slap your hand, you're going to go to prison. This is before Almighty God, too, so I really thought that was really awesome.
Very good point, Sister. And see, once again, what you're saying is, another way, is the railroad track. Again, the New York Times is saying it. Oh, the church functions on this idea of the sin and redemption and forgiveness, and the world doesn't. It's law, utilitarianism, revenge, pragmatism. None of that stuff is none of the stuff that's over here does the world go by. That's the problem. They don't see. Here's the key. The word would be deterministic. See, this level here, and especially with the emphasis of psychology, psychiatry, if you notice, we are very deterministic. That's why, again, I think it's wrong to label people homosexual. See, we're very deterministic. We label somebody, and we figure that's all that they will be, and there's a whole list of ingredients, character traits that should apply to them, and they will never climb out of that. They can never go beyond that. That's what you are. What does most psychology and psychiatry do today? Does it try to move the person beyond? In other words, divinize, to become the Christ person, to free themselves of their maladies? No. Mostly what it does is it labels you, determines you, it puts things like talk about a glass ceiling in the corporate place. Well, there's like a glass ceiling, a psycho-spiritual glass ceiling that the intellectuals of the world puts on us. And they simply help you cope within that ceiling. You understand the difference? They never say that, you don't have to have this ceiling. You can continue to grow and to change it. It's called redemption. Now, these bishops, when I'm the first person to work against, to identify, to correct, whatever, when the church does something wrong in this area. But at the same time, I want truth all the way around. It's got to be honesty. It's not just taking sides. It's truth about everything. And the truth is, when the church, think about it, if we're a church, we're a body that thinks in terms of redemption and forgiveness and renewal. Well, if a guy has a problem, a priest has a problem, the bishops had him get fixed up, especially after the experts said he was fixed up. Then the bishops bringing them back, wasn't that them just living out this idea of redemption and renewal, at least the possibility of it? There are cases, many cases, where there was only one incident in that person's whole history, and they're gone for life now. Now, one incident is too bad, it's obviously it's too much. But the fact is, the church always has an openness to this concept of anyone can be redeemed, convert, be renewed, be forgiven, because God's grace is what is the last word, not psychology, psychiatry, or disease. I mean, Christ raised people from the dead. You know what the most unbelievable, unthinkable miracle of Christ was in the Bible? It was not raising someone from the dead. You know which one it was? Is restoring sight to the blind. See, the whole reason he allowed Lazarus to be in the grave 4 days and to come out smelling, purposely he let him smell. In fact, the icons actually show it stinking. There's people like going like this, really, because he knew that in the Old Testament, those Jewish people remembered that Elijah and Elisha both brought people back from the dead. But they weren't dead very long. So he knew that they wouldn't even buy it if he brought Lazarus back from the dead. So I'll be in your face. I'll let you smell it. I'll let you smell the stench. He did. And the Bible makes that point. And so does the church. He was dead 4 days, and because he wanted it to stink. He wanted these people to know that this guy was really dead. But yet, there was still a precedent for bringing people back from the dead in the Bible. But there was no precedent of restoring sight to the blind. So, anything can be restored and renewed in Christ. And so this is why, part of the reason why, we, okay, erroneously, but part of the reasons why the church did just keep these guys around and move them around, or they sent them away and then brought them back after the experts said they were clean. Now we know more and more that the recidivism and the what's in fact it says right here in the psychiatry thing, some schools of thought is that pedophilia is untreatable. No, that's it. You're done. Well, Christians never say that about anything, do we? Lepers have been cured. The Bible's full of miracles that seem, again, the lame walked, the blind saw, the mute spoke, devils were cast out, people brought back from the dead. There wasn't anything Christ couldn't lick. And that's what we function on. The world, no, they say, that's right, you're done, you're only going to be this. Label you. You're a pedophile, you're gay.
I think at a certain point, though, that the bishops, just for common sense, they should have just chucked the psychiatrist and said, you know what, this guy, everywhere we put him, it just keeps happening.
Right.
And then your care for the children at that point is like,
right.
no, we're not going to put him here and see how many kids he abuses.
Exactly.
How many lives can he destroy? I
Right.
don't care, I'm busy with my whatevers,
And we know that more now, unfortunately. But you're right. Yes.
I have a question about your comment earlier about the attraction. I used to be an international flight attendant, and a lot of male flight attendants did pick up young boys on the airplane and asked me if I found them attractive. And they were probably...
How young?
I was 28.
No, how young were the boys?
They were 16, 15, 16. And I didn't find that attractive. And they didn't understand why I didn't find that attractive. Like, I don't find a boy attractive. So there's an assumption on heterosexuals that we understand a homosexual culture and their culture understands our culture. My personal opinion is our cultures are different. That's my experience.
Yes, they are. Because
So
again, it's like
you
that.
always put
Yeah.
them in a box like they're just like us, or we're like
No.
them, or they're like us, and it's
Right.
like that's not been my experience. Not to degrade, I didn't have a lot of gay friends, but our cultures are different. We just didn't agree on a lot of things.
Yes, it
and
is.
That was one of them. I don't
Right.
find a 16-year-old boy attractive.
Now, again, we're doing it 360. We're covering everything, and yes, as Sister brought up, moving toward. Want to get that towards. As we wade through all the secular stuff, want to get towards what the message for the church in this. And many times, many cases, yes, the bishops did. Bishops and other officials too in the church did so-called cover up, or they didn't deal with it correctly. Some of the reason is, remember, I'm honest, I go all the way, if I'm going to be as honest about them, I'll be as honest about the church as well, so that we can bring about healing and so on. Many times, the leaders themselves were compromised. So there was some real cover-up on that, and circling the wagons on that level too.
What do you mean by that?
It means that they were and there have been some cases, some were public, so there have been some bishops that had to go too because they were perpetrators as well, and very tied in with the so-called gay community and among gay priests and within, huh? Yeah, and there was one in Atlanta, and there was Arizona. Yeah, there's been, yeah, exactly. So that's another reason why there was, so it went all the way from, as Sister said, not a failure of common sense, putting too much credence into the worldly experts, the influence of the world, good intentions but misguided, all the way to just downright being part of the evil and perpetuating it. There's the whole spectrum of, like when people say, why do the bishops act this way? They're thinking that there's one way they acted and one perspective on it. No, it's a very comprehensive perspective. There's a variety of ways that they acted out of it, or on it and out of it. But the bottom line, and here's George Weigel. What is essential throughout the world, however, is that the church become more Catholic, not less. John Paul II's Theology of the Body proposed an understanding of faithful and fruitful human love as an icon of God's fruitful human love, as an icon of God's inner life. That vision is far nobler, far more compelling, and far more humane than the sex as contact sport teaching of the sexual revolution, the principal victims of which seem to be vulnerable young people. Those who are generally committed to the protection of the young might ponder whether Catholicism really needs to become Catholic light, or whether the Augean stables of present-day culture need a radical cleansing. See what he did? He turned it right back on the culture. No, it's you guys need to clean up your act, because it was your filth that we took in, admittedly. And that's why we let you down. You guys need to clean up. We clean up our act, but you guys need to clean up.
Yeah, Sister Ann Jones, there's that passage in Scripture about judgment. I don't know where it is. Judgment, and it's starting with the house of God. I have to find this because I think it's so relevant. Because again, because this is breaking open, it's affecting a lot of other hidden junk in the world is coming out too, and even other countries are starting to. We have good laws in this country to protect children, but other countries do not, and so they're having to, because of the church. And we haven't even begun to hear.
No.
This is going to go on for decades. Like,
yes.
I mean, Latin America. What's going on down there? We haven't heard a thing.
Yeah.
They're just going to start dredging all this stuff up, and it's going to force the laws. It's going to force
Even at that point,
and good's going to come out.
are we going to stay with the child and ever being abused? We
can try.
I mean,
and that's the good that's going to come out of it.
We're going to try, but
yeah, start with the church, and
we're going to have to put ourselves in blocks and bars and cages, and it's
well, everybody has to be on board.
everybody has
It's
to
not
be
just
on
up to
board.
the bishops and the priests, and that it's just real quick. That Father McMillan here in Chicago. I mean, there was a principal of a school, and she knew what he was doing, but she was too scared. This lay woman was too scared to to testify. She wouldn't testify. She wouldn't make an official complaint, and she knew what he was doing. So everybody has to be vigilant. But innocent until proven guilty. It's not that every priest has to be treated with suspicion.
No, and that's part of the real tragedy of this whole thing.
There's a scene in the movie The Crisis, I think, with Meryl Streep.
Or doubt.
The mother of the child finds out that the convent or the priest in the school is not exactly what they have. Carries a lot of doubtful credentials, and so that was the whole point of the movie. And then the mother just said, I don't want him anywhere, because out there it's much worse.
Mm-hmm.
I will let my child stay in that school
Yeah.
because it's much, much worse.
There you go.
We went through a crisis in our country, the John Birch Society. I mean, everybody went around looking.
Mm-hmm.
McCarthyism, where we all had these Theology of the Body glasses. We were looking at everybody, and checking their credentials. And I can say that parents now don't want their sons being altar boys, so we're seeing a feminine from church out there, because everybody is now living in this just shaky life.
Right.
We want to go around living
No.
like that.
That's why.
We're prisoners
Right.
of this hope that we want to have, and goodness, and forgiveness, and redemption, love.
See,
and go from there.
as horrible as any abuse is of a child, like Jesus. Remember Jesus even said, if you scandalize one of these, put a noose around your neck and throw yourself in the water. Still, there is something in a sense worse, or an extension of that. And this is, for me personally, one of my greatest cautions or messages to the church in this. And I speak to my bishop about this all the time. When we look over our safe environment policy, in fact, we actually made some changes in the language, because I said we have to be careful that one of the devil's ultimate victories in this whole thing is to bring about the compromising of our ministry. Our ministry is being seriously compromised now. We have to be careful. because there are things like priests just won't deal with teenagers at all. They won't deal with youth groups. They won't take a kid needs a ride home. It's like, I can't put him in my car. It's all this. It's this hunker down, protect your butt. You go into protection mode, and the flock is going to be allowed to be attacked by the wolves. Oh, no, no. You do not compromise. They want to get video cameras in the confessionals. They want to invade that. In fact, I had a discussion with my bishop about this, about confession. He was asking how I do it and all that kind of stuff, And man, they want you to have windows. And I said, let me tell you something. I've been a priest 28 years. And confession can sometimes be extremely cathartic. Confession can at times be, where a person is completely pouring themselves out physically, spiritually, everything, and you cannot, they need what they need, believe me. And I would fight to the death for that. I'd go to the cross of jail to protect that person's need of what they need in confession. And it'll be over my dead body that I would ever compromise the confession experience. Because we want to be safe. And that's where we're headed. We're close. We're not going to, but we got to be very careful. You do not.
France, they're doing it on the telephone.
Jesus.
I mean, that's not a lot. Well, it was, they were talking about it and doing it because of the anonymity and
The internet maybe.
That'll never happen. Well, it was just a discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know where they are, but but I'm just saying, a father's sake, if there's pressure from the lay, who are the groups that run the church, the lay committees, right? And they say, well, we want to put cameras in the confessional, and we agreed on this, so if that's the thing, maybe it would go to the telephone. I don't,
But you see, again, that's anti-theology of the body, you see, because remember, healing is total.
Right.
Shall we anoint people online, anointing of the sick online? So somehow come up with a way to get the oil, subscribers, so you don't have to touch them? Where do you stop with this?
Certain things will never happen. They discussed this like 20 years ago, confession by the phone and all that. And canon law, it's the sacramental. It'll never happen.
Do you know our form of confession, you have to touch the person. Do you know that? Yeah. What you do is, in fact, you take your stole and you put it on their head, and you put your hand on top of their head. So, okay, you're not physical. Okay, there's a stole between you and your purposely. It means that stole represents Christ and the church. That it's Christ. Your forgiveness, redemption is through Christ and the church, and that's symbolized by the stole. The stole that the priest wears is a symbol of member of the church. He carries a flock on his shoulders as the church. So he puts that on their head, and he puts his hands on. That's how we go to confession, our church. So you have to touch the person, and that's how we pronounce the words of absolution. So they feel it, they hear it. That's theology of the body. That's the way it's supposed to be. And you're going to start compromising that over my dead body. I'll never compromise that.
The church will never allow that. The state might try to force us to do
Exactly.
that. We'll fight because
Absolutely.
then we're not the church anymore.
Right.
There's an army California. This week I heard on 780, I just want to get the weather, but they were contesting, Congressman in Wisconsin is contesting the mandate now that legislation has passed sex education in schools and teaching of contraception and the methods in high school, how they're teaching. Teachers are going to teach the methods of contraception, and it's being contested by one of the district legislators. And the bottom line, and the reporter said, there will be no court case on this. It'll be knocked out. There'll be no contest. This will just be a fool.
Yeah.
To think. So we're getting public schools now teaching explicit contraception methods. And Illinois has that on its agenda. I don't think it's going to come to a vote, but it's been submitted in Illinois for teaching sex education in this state. So I think we're going to get hit on all sides.
Yes, and that's, yes. Yeah. It is a war, spiritual battle, and but to make it simple, to realize that I want you to really believe and feel that you are confident. All you have to do to make it real simple is never take anything that's said Never let it just go by. Question every word and or ask for elaboration from that person. Whether it's an author, person you're talking with. That's all you have to do. And you know what's good about that is? Thank you. You can it end up being a very civil conversation. Because what you're doing is you're sort of, in a sense, being interested in them. To an extent, you're saying, well, tell me more about this, or tell me, what is your understanding of this word? Would you like to know my understanding? It's a little bit different. Or I heard this, I heard these statistics from the psychiatric, you throw out a few numbers here and there, that most of this stuff happens in broken families and in non-Catholic denominations where there's married clergy. I just found that it's kind of interesting, like that, But you never answer. Don't see. Again, we're at the end of the line of the horse race, and as we come plodding with our heads down, there they are standing, asking, "Thou, you will answer to me," because No, you never answer to them. We do not answer to them. Think of it the reverse. Before this race even starts, you're asking them the questions. It's a matter of holding them to honesty. Hold their feet to honesty. Hold them down to honesty. That's all you have to do. Even if you don't feel like you have the answers themselves, ask them. Don't answer them, but you keep asking them to articulate, try to draw out of them where they get this, what they really mean by that. What does this word actually mean? We're almost played dumb. Like, really, marriage. What is marriage actually? It's the same. I don't know. I just can't imagine that. It's not exactly the two body parts between a man and a woman, a man and a man. A man and a man. The body parts are different, aren't they? So how could we use the same word? Then they'll have to flounder to redefine marriage, this and that. You understand what I mean? You don't even have to argue. You just you keep them. They never get past step one. They never get past the starting gate because you keep questioning them and questioning the words, and it can end up being a great conversation. It gets them thinking and so on, but you never answer them because they're because they're setting the ground rules and you're trying to answer on their terms. See, we can't do that. Church can't do that. You can't answer on their terms because we're already guilty. We're wrong because they've already set the terms. So you got to come off their terms, take it out of their home court, I call it, and keep taking it to where they have that there's a flounder. And that's in the truth of the words. The truth. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
It's funny how we never go to the source and get their
No.
right information.
No.
It's always out there, somewhere
Right.
else, secular world.
Right, exactly.
So they never come. I have friends, and I always tell them, I'm like, where are you getting your information from?
Yeah.
And they're not getting it in the right place. It's like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Getting it from Wikipedia,
Like people ask me, and I say, okay, then I'll do the Irish thing. Although I'm not Irish, I tell them, I ask them, I say, well,
On the internet, it's got to be true.
yeah, it's got to be, yeah. Like they'll say, well, why does the church say this or that? And I'll say, do you want to know what the church really says or what somebody else says it says? That's the first thing I do.
But
Usu-
also, just journalistic standards have been thrown out.
Oh, yeah.
window.
Oh, my gosh.
Their primary source for this Wisconsin deal is the lawyer who's making
Yeah.
millions of dollars by suing the Vatican. That was it will never really happen, but that's your source.
Yeah.
That wouldn't fly anywhere else. You would lose all your credentials. People would laugh.
Yeah.
It's okay when it's
They say that it's like a journalistic laziness. They're supposed to be out on the beat getting the facts, but they'll just sit in there and make up the story, or go on the internet and get that and then make it up. It's a laziness. By the way, that I was deposed. I was questioned. I had to give an affidavit to that lawyer in the cases I was involved in. Jeffrey Anderson. Jeffrey Anderson. The only problem is remember in the Bible God used the Jews' enemies to cleanse them, to bring them to their knees in repentance. He said, I will, since you have deviated from me, I will use the Assyrians to clobber you with the Egyptians, And to some extent, some of these people we might consider enemies, in a sense, it took them to kind of force the church to look at this. I have to admit, because I was that involved in it, and it's just...
I always tell people when they're going after the Pope or whatever, I'm like, you know what? you're taking the focus off the victim.
Yes.
Every time you want to, like, pretending you want to get to the root cause.
Right.
You know, and if we only did this,
Yes.
there'd be no more problems. Well, what about the world? What's the answer for the world's problem?
Right. Exactly.
They're not, you know, trying to have celibate priesthood or whatever. It's like,
Right.
so I'm always like, let's talk about the victims first. Let's talk about the horrible things that did happen and they should never have happened and
Right.
it's wrong and it's bad and let's find out, you know, about that. Not this, now's my chance to, everything I always hated about the Catholic Church, you know, boom, you know.
What, just to kind of end with a story, hopefully be encouraging for you. You may have heard this on Relevant Radio. It was actually, it happened more than once. One of the victims in the case that I had to deal with in our eparchy, after the case finally had whatever come to conclusion, if you can call it that, it never really totally come to closure in a sense. He hadn't heard from for years. Then out of the blue, he calls up Relevant Radio. He called the Drew Mariani Show. And he talked a little bit about his story, and he mentioned my name on the show. He did so even recently because he listens and he heard because the subject came up. And that what's beautiful about that, and I'd like to talk to you about that maybe in private because you're in the movies. His story is one that I think ought to be made into a movie because it is a profound story of hurt and redemption, of hurt and forgiveness. And this man wants to dedicate his life to helping priests and helping the church. He was away from the church for long. He was classic textbook case of what happens to abuse victims. And it's horrible what happens to their lives afterwards. It's terrible. That it is so devastating. It really is. It's so devastating. That's why one case is scandal enough. You know, it is so because again, our sexuality is everything. You know, that's the whole point of this. So we go in there and hurt that, we hurt everything about us. It's devastating. But there's still God, and there's still redemption. There's still Christ. And that's the part I think that you know we have to preach more. You know, that you have total, complete, yes, concern and love, compassion for the victim, and to wipe this thing out once and for all. But at the same time, that as we know now, in this time of the resurrection, it's all about redemption. That anything, anybody we can move beyond. It can be redeemed. You know, with God's grace. You know. That's the whole miracle and the message of the resurrection. He took the worst thing and he bested it. And that's our hope. And if anything else, we are people of hope above all else. So, my last point in conclusion would be this. You know, the church, you know, we call our priest father. Yes, it's a patriarchal church. You know, it's fully a dirty word, but for good reason. It's a very holy word. Because a father is someone who relates to his children with both, I call it both hands, and to everything, because it's part of the maleness theology body. The male thing is a sense of justice that establishes an authority, protects that the dignity, the integrity of that authority. He metes out justice in a way that is fair. In other words, if something needs to be corrected, he corrects it, no matter who it is, what it is. At the same time, it's not just correcting. It's also saying what is right, what is encouraging. And a father must always relate, especially to his children, with both those hands at all times. He can never be just this and just that. He must be both. And I believe, if the Pope wanted my opinion, what I would want him to do, ask him to do, is to truly be the father. You know, John Paul II believed and he knew, and he was, and the proof of it was his funeral. He saw himself as the Pope is, as the father of the world. He is the father to everyone. Whether you believe it or not, he's still the father. And non-believers said that when he died. They said, I felt like I lost a father. Hindus said that. Atheists said that. He was father how was he Father? He related to the world and to everybody with both hands. Correction when needed. In other words, truth, justice, wherever it was. Not with agenda, not with bias, but whatever it was, clearly, honestly, and with that love and affirmation where it was needed as well. And I think that that's part of what maybe we're looking for from the Pope. I mean, he's doing maybe in his own way, but just whatever it's worth, again, basing on the theology of the body, what is fatherhood, what is manhood, and since men are at the helm in this regard, it's for a good reason. I think he needs to be very, very forthright and upfront about these things, as he is being. But I think even more so, at the same time, in other words, calling the injustice or the wrong wherever it is, from perpetrators, but also to these people too. Okay? You just you deal justice to everyone. No, you're wrong here. This is not true. This is dishonest. Yeah, this person may have done this or this and that. We may be guilty of this and that, but it's wrong to say this. So you don't say it. At the same time, I'm glad you're concerned. And this person needs love too, so do you. Yeah, you see what I mean? I think he needs to be just really the father, really the man. And I think that's what the world is really looking for. I think it would take us a long way. Yes?
But could it also be this is happening because this is our home, and so that way we could look at our homes, at our own houses, and see the inside of our own houses, or what's happening at home with our families.
Mm-hmm.
And since this is happening in our church, in our home, the true home, and so that way we could look, this is happening right here, so what is happening in our own homes, in our own families?
Right. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Like Sister was saying, this is the question that is global now. The whole world, yes. And what are we? And it does start with the victims. Why are they this way? And as they are victims, in these statistics, not every perpetrator was abused themselves, but a large percentage were. Yes.
There's a political aspect to this too. This homosexual marriage is coming up more and more. And I think the left is trying to undermine the authority.
Yes.
The moral authority of the Pope, diminish it and push their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
George Weigel said that on Relevant Radio. There's a great section on it, and he said they're trying to cripple his papacy. So when all these issues coming up, they'll be like, well, they're just a bunch of child molesters.
Yeah.
We don't have to listen to them about anything.
Right.
There's a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We cannot underestimate. This is, a battle for good versus evil. Really. I mean, it's.
I've heard some people call it, I think you said a civil war.
Oh yeah.
Violent civil war.
Yeah. And again, why us? This is a backhanded affirmation that we are it. And if they can get at it, then they've got their way.
It's like anybody else, if this was exposed about them, they would step down on all their high and mighty beliefs.
Yes.
And
Right.
change their beliefs, but
Right.
they're not our beliefs.
Exactly.
The reality and the truth, and we'll
They can't understand
stand
that.
by
No.
it, even though we don't even begin to live up to it.
Again, we're living Calvary. It's interesting, these things come up during Holy Week all the time. If you notice, it explodes, it gets recycled.
And they're criticizing the church for playing the victim now. Like the Pope is like, oh, well, he's not saying it, but people around him are saying like, I'm being attacked. Well, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
But at the same time, let's keep the focus on the victims, the real victims.
The victims of, actually it was started with original sin, but spiked during the 1600s, when we began to deviate from the mystical. We went to the scientific rational, then the Enlightenment. It's been a progressive thing. And then finally another spike in the 60s, which was, so the groundwork was kind of laid after the World Wars. Then you have communism, fascism. There's been this threat against, basically it's a battle against of theology of the body versus not theology of the body, It's a battle for the devaluation of the physical order. Everything related to that. The physical order is not connected, does not reveal the spiritual. There's no connection there. And the church realizes that it is, and so it can't compromise. It won't change. And to me, it's so much like during the accounts of Holy Week, when Christ was on the cross, and they went by and they said to him, we'll believe, just no cross. Just come down from the cross. And he wouldn't do that. And that's the same thing with the Catholic Church. We won't take the cross out of the equation. We won't take that sense of sin, repentance, death, dying to self, suffering, redemptive suffering. We won't take that out of the equation. And they want us to. That's the one thing, and we're the only body on earth that will not take that out. The sister said, every other one will compromise and waver, but we will not take out the one thing everyone wants us to take out, and that's the cross. Yes. Yes?
There seems to be a group within the church for decades that know better, but want to do so much damage to the church.
Yes.
So who are these people? And why are they? Are they lay people? Are they clergy that want to change, that are bitter? They want.
Some would blame Masons, the Masons, if you want to identify a group, there's those theories. I just think, to be honest with you, I just think it is the same thing recycled and manifested in different groups, different peoples in different eras of time. There's always a threat to, the church. And,
From within.
yeah, from within especially, and don't forget, remember the great heresies? The great Christian heresies, those are the huge battles. And a lot of those heresies, like the Arian heresy, at one time, a third of the bishops in the Eastern Church were heretics. Can you imagine? So we've had mega offenses against the church.
I think that's a really good way to look at what you were saying too before. Is the more we accept the world's values,
Yes.
that's what corrupts us.
Yeah. But
And it's not that we're not Catholic enough holy, but we're not holy enough.
right, we're not Catholic enough,
We're
right?
not Catholic enough, we're not holy enough. I think of original sin and going back to Garden of Eden, we're all carriers of that original
Yeah.
sin. We're all really broken because
Yeah.
of original sin. We can
Right.
carry ourselves the rest of our lives like that. Or not stop at it. Redeemer. Be more Catholic. Be more holy.
Yes.
Even the Lord in the pro-life conference, we were talking about that, how all of a sudden, everybody starts, we start thinking about it. If this is happening, okay, it's fine, and then we start thinking that that's fine, then it's okay for it to, and it's really like,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Father, thank you.
Thank you.
Sister Elena, I sent you an email because I didn't know if you were going to do this today, but it's
Oh.
every second Saturday,
Yes.
right? Is it
Yep.
through the summer too? Are you?
We don't know yet what the summer schedule will be,
It
but
should be,
usually
Yeah.
we break at some point in the summer. But we'll let you know. I have your email now?
Just forget it. Yes.
Okay,
You
okay.
can add us to the list.
All right.